Welcome to a place where love is not ordinary, where stories go beyond age, beyond rules, beyond what the world dares to whisper. Here, every heartbeat tells a truth that cannot be silenced. You'll hear stories of sparks that start as innocent moments, of forbidden desires that burn with fear and fire, of nights where passion and trust merge into something unforgettable, and of love that transcends numbers and judgment to heal and transform. These are not just tales of romance. They are confessions of the soul, raw and unfiltered, told with the honesty of someone who has lived them. If you've ever felt the kind of love that consumes, that awakens, that refuses to be defined, then you are in the right place. Stay, listen, and let these stories remind you that love in all its forms remains the most powerful truth of all. It started so simply that it almost felt unremarkable at first. A conversation that wasn't meant to linger, a laugh that wasn't supposed to echo for days afterward, and a presence that should have felt ordinary, but somehow did not. There was something in the way words passed between us, unplanned and unpolished, yet they carried a warmth that reached deeper than expected. The air between us shifted subtly, like the faint pull of a tide no one sees until it gathers strength. It was not about searching for anything, nor was it about chasing something missing. It was about the way silence filled the spaces between words without ever feeling heavy, the way a glance held a softness that didn't need to be explained. Curiosity was what drew the first step closer, not desire, not even intention, just a quiet intrigue that made every moment together feel like it belonged to something bigger than either of us could name. That spark was not born in an instant. It grew slowly, like light slipping through a curtain at dawn. Every small detail carried weight, a smile that lingered just a fraction longer, a question asked not out of politeness but out of genuine interest, an inside joke that lived only between two hearts. These small pieces began forming a puzzle, one that revealed something neither of us had been looking for yet couldn't look away from once it appeared. The energy was undeniable. It wasn't about appearances or age or circumstance. It was something unseen yet deeply felt, a pull magnetic and steady, impossible to explain but harder still to resist. Every word spoken seemed to settle into the chest, not just the ears. Every shared moment carried an undercurrent of something that wanted to grow, something that reached beyond logic and whispered to the soul instead. At first, it was brushed aside as nothing more than friendliness, the kind that happens when two people connect over laughter and ease. But the heart does not mistake what it feels. There was a flutter, subtle but persistent, like a gentle knocking that refused to be ignored. That spark grew warmer with every encounter until it became impossible to pretend it wasn't there. There was no plan, no strategy, no thought of what would come next, just the raw simplicity of two souls catching fire from the smallest ember. A touch of the hand while passing something across a table carried more electricity than words could hold. A glance across a room felt like it stretched time itself. The air grew charged when we were near each other, filled with the kind of energy that no one else could see, but both of us felt to the bone. It was innocent, yet it carried the weight of something much larger. Nothing had been spoken, yet everything seemed understood. The curiosity that began so quietly had awakened something buried, something long thought dormant. It wasn't lust alone, though desire hummed faintly beneath the surface. It wasn't love fully, not yet, though love already had its hands on us. It was the beginning, the first pulse of something alive, powerful, undeniable. Looking back, it was clear that life doesn't announce when it's about to change. It doesn't send warnings or prepare the heart for the storm it's about to walk into. It just happens, quietly at first, like a thread weaving itself between two people who never saw it coming. That thread grew stronger with every word, every smile, every silence shared. And once it was there was no way to unravel it. It felt dangerous in its simplicity, almost unreal in its purity, but nothing had ever felt more alive. That spark, born out of curiosity, became the fire that would change everything. It crept in slowly, like a shadow at first, harmless and barely noticeable. But then it began to pulse, to breathe, to grow into something that could no longer be denied. Attraction was not something chosen, not something invited. It was simply there, alive between us. It was in the way his eyes lingered, steady but uncertain, searching for something and yet afraid to find it. It was in the way my heart would race when silence filled the air, not because of discomfort, but because of the weight of what remained unspoken. Every glance felt charged, as though the world itself shifted when our eyes met. There was a heat that stirred beneath the surface, too strong to dismiss and too honest to hide. Fear was woven into it, the kind of fear that comes when the soul knows it is standing at the edge of something that could consume everything. And yet, that fear never once overpowered the fire. Instead, it fueled it, made every moment sharper, deeper, unforgettable. It was the smallest touches that betrayed us first, hands that brushed too closely, fingers that lingered just long enough to make the skin burn, a closeness that felt like an accident, but was never quite that. Those touches carried more than flesh meeting flesh. They carried questions, longing, hunger. They carried the tension of two people caught between what they should resist and what they secretly craved. The danger of it only made it more intoxicating. The mind whispered warnings, painting pictures of consequences, of what could be lost, of how the world would never understand. But the heart refused to let go. The heart beat harder, louder, insisting that this was not wrong, that this was not fleeting, that this was something real. Every stolen glance, every lingering silence, every accidental touch made that truth harder to ignore. There were nights when I would close my eyes and feel the memory of his gaze pressing against me, the heat of it refusing to fade. Desire had already crossed into something deeper by then. It wasn't about the body alone, though the body ached in ways words could never capture. It was about the soul recognizing itself in another, about finding pieces of life that had been missing for so long in the presence of someone unexpected. That mixture of fear and fire created a world only we could enter. It was a fragile world, hidden from others, guarded like a secret treasure. It carried both torment and bliss, the torment of holding back, the bliss of knowing that something this powerful could even exist. In his smile there was danger, in his touch there was surrender. In his voice there was a promise neither of us dared to say aloud. Every moment of restraint only deepened the hunger. Every goodbye felt unfinished. Every encounter left an ache that lingered long after parting. Desire was no longer something at the surface. It had carved itself into the very core, digging deeper than want, deeper than fantasy. It became need, not of possession, but of connection, of union. There was a night when his hand brushed mine, and neither of us pulled away. The stillness around us cracked open into something electric, and the truth became undeniable. The fear still lingered, whispering of all the reasons to resist, but the fire roared louder, declaring that this was not temptation but revelation. This was not a fleeting spark but a flame that had always been waiting to burn, and in that realization the forbidden became the only truth worth holding. What began as desire transformed into something pure, something unshakable. It was no longer just attraction. It was love, raw and untamed, a love that carried both danger and salvation in the same breath. The heart had already chosen, and there was no turning back. The nights came quietly, almost unexpectedly, as though the world itself conspired to leave us alone with nothing but the weight of what we could no longer deny. They were not rushed, not stolen in haste, but given, surrendered to as though time itself had softened and stretched to hold us in its embrace. Each night carried a rhythm of its own, a rhythm not of chaos but of trust, of surrender, of love revealing itself in the most vulnerable of ways. It wasn't about urgency, it was about depth. Every touch felt deliberate, every kiss unspoken words that language could never hold. There was no need for performance, no need to pretend. In his arms, there was only truth, raw and unshaped, and it was enough. Every breath, every sigh, every whisper settled into my skin like a promise that this was more than passion. It was belonging. The body remembered things the mind had long forgotten, and in those nights it awoke again. There was no shame, no hesitation, only the opening of a heart that had been guarded for too long. In the darkness, nothing was hidden, and nothing needed to be. It was not just the warmth of skin against skin. It was the way his heartbeat synced with mine, the way his touch carried care as much as hunger, the way desire blended seamlessly into tenderness. Those nights became a sanctuary, a place where the outside world could not enter. There were no years, no judgments, no barriers, only two souls meeting in the most human, the most sacred way possible. The fire burned hot, but it was never reckless. It was fierce but safe, wild but trusting. Every embrace spoke of need, yes, but also of devotion, of the desire not just to take but to give, not just to consume but to cherish. I remember the way his hands would trace the lines of my body as though memorizing them, not with haste but with reverence, as though each curve and each scar told a story he wanted to carry with him. I remember the way his lips lingered not only where passion demanded, but where love whispered, soft, slow, patient. I remember the way silence between us wasn't empty, but filled with something larger than either of us, as though love itself was breathing in the room. Every kiss felt like an oath, every touch felt like a confession, every moment stripped away the layers of fear and left nothing but two hearts open, exposed, yet unafraid, and in that exposure there was freedom. To be seen, to be desired, to be loved without question, that was the gift those nights gave. It was not just passion burning in the dark. It was love clothed in fire, trust wrapped in heat, devotion alive in every sigh. The world might have called it forbidden, might have painted it in shadows, but within those walls it was the purest light I had ever known. We spoke with our bodies what words could not capture. We confessed in touches what our lips would never dare say aloud. And in that language, unspoken and undeniable, we found something eternal. Those nights were not fleeting escapes. They were anchors, moments that tied us to something greater than either of us had expected. Passion without love fades quickly, but this deepened with each embrace, grew stronger with each night. It was as if love had chosen passion as its vessel and through it revealed its truest form. Even now, when the nights have long passed into memory, I can still feel them in my skin, in my breath, in the rhythm of my own heart, because those nights were not simply nights of passion. They were nights where love itself wore a human face, where desire and devotion met and became one, where nothing existed except the undeniable truth of us, and that truth has never left me. Love does not ask for permission, and it does not stop to count years. It arrives in silence, unexpected, and then takes root so deeply that no force in the world can uproot it. What grew between us was not something that could be measured by the lines on my face or the freshness of his youth. It was not something that could be weighed by judgment, nor explained to those who only see the surface. It was a love that belonged to us alone, one that moved beyond age, beyond appearances, beyond reason itself. At first, I fought it. I tried to convince myself that the years between us were too many, that the world would never understand, that this was something fragile and foolish. Every voice in my head repeated the same warnings. He is too young. I am too old. This cannot last. This cannot be real. And yet, every time his eyes found mine, those voices dissolved into silence, because what I felt in his gaze was not youth looking at age, or desire chasing novelty. What I felt was a soul recognizing mine, seeing it fully, without hesitation, without doubt. There was a healing in his presence, a softening of wounds I had carried for years. With him, there was no weight of time, no burden of expectation. He did not see what I had lost or what years had taken. He only saw what still burned within me, and in that seeing, he breathed life into it again. His laughter lit something in me that I thought had gone dark forever. His touch reminded me that the body still remembers what it means to feel alive. His words, simple yet sincere, carried a truth that no one else had dared to give. And so love grew, not in spite of the years, but because it transcended them. Age became nothing more than a number, meaningless against the force of what bound us. There were moments when I would look at him and wonder how such a connection could even exist, how two people from such different places in life could find themselves so deeply, so perfectly aligned. But the heart does not calculate, the heart does not keep score, the heart only knows when it has found its home. The world, of course, would not understand. Whispers and judgments would come, as they always do. But love that is real has its own strength, a strength that makes silence possible when the noise grows loud. We carried our love like a secret flame, one that burned quietly, steadily, without needing to prove itself to anyone. In his arms, I never felt older, never felt different, never felt apart. I felt whole, I felt wanted, I felt seen, and that was more than enough. It was not a fleeting passion, though passion lived between us like fire on the skin. It was not a shallow infatuation, though desire pulled us closer with undeniable force. It was something greater, something deeper. It was love that stripped away every barrier the world had built between us. It was love that taught me that years cannot define the capacity of a heart to feel, to give, to surrender. There were nights when we lay together, no words between us, only the steady rhythm of breath and heartbeat. In those moments the years vanished. There was no past, no future, only the present, only the undeniable truth of being together. His hands held me as though I was the only person in the world, and in that touch was a reverence I had never known. It was not about possession or conquest. It was about devotion, about giving, about loving without boundaries. That love consumed me, not in a way that destroyed, but in a way that rebuilt. It washed away fear, healed the wounds of time, and gave me a new strength, a new fire. It transformed me, showed me that love is not about what the world deems acceptable, but about what the heart knows to be true. With him, I learned that age is a language of the body, not the soul, and the soul, untouched by years, only knows how to love. What we shared was not meant for everyone to understand, but it was meant for us to live, to breathe, to hold. And in holding it, we found freedom, we found truth, we found a love too powerful to silence. And that love will remain with me forever. If this story touched your heart, let it live on by joining this journey of love and truth. Like this video, share it with someone who believes in love beyond boundaries, and subscribe for more stories that awaken the soul. Until next time, let love remain your deepest truth.